Hi, my name's Matt, and I'd like to welcome you to this Zindiac video, which is the introduction to our MOR4 Management of Risk, Creating and Protecting Value training course. MOR has been part of the Axelos portfolio since 2002, and the previous version, MOR version 3, had a foundation and a practitioner qualification. In January 2022, MOR4 Practitioner was released as a standalone qualification, so it has no prerequisites. You do not need MOR version 3 Foundation as a prerequisite for MOR4 Practitioner, and there is no MOR4 Foundation. It's a standalone practitioner qualification with no prerequisites. And it is a valid component of the ProPath certification scheme. So if you're looking to become accredited as a ProPath project expert or a ProPath agile project expert, MOR4 practitioner is a valid MOR qualification for those two certifications. You'll also need either Prince 2 or Prince 2 Agile, depending on whether you're doing the project expert or agile project expert, and of course MSP practitioner to achieve those certifications. The objectives of this course are, of course, to help you pass the MOR4 practitioner certification exam. We know that'll be your primary concern, but also we want to give you a real good understanding of risk management so you can use it efficiently and effectively in your day-to-day work. Zindiac are, of course, an accredited MOR4 practitioner training organisation, as well as being accredited for many other Axelos PeopleCert, PPM and ITIL products. And I myself, Matt Trigg, your trainer, am of course an accredited practitioner and trainer in MOR4, MOR version 3, the rest of the PPM portfolio and ITIL. In terms of the MOR4 practitioner examination, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes in duration unless English isn't your first language, in which case you get an extra 25% of time or 33.5 minutes. There are 65 questions, you need 33 out of 65 in order to pass, so 51%. But my strong recommendation is you want to be getting at least 75% in the sample exams. Ideally more, but at least 75% in order to feel that you're ready to take the actual exam. The exam is an open book exam, so you can use the official MOR4 guidance in the exam. The ebook version is included as part of this course, but if you would prefer the paperback copy, you can order it from our site. As I said, there are no prerequisites, but your exam will be based on one of the 4 scenarios contained within the textbook. Now, you don't need to read every bit of every scenario from all the way through the book because the 4 scenarios are used all the way through the book. You just need to read the part of the scenario that's included in chapter 1 so you're aware of the setting that they will use for your exam. The syllabus, the exam, and indeed our course is broken down into 4 areas. Understanding the purpose and principles of risk management, 11 marks. Understanding how risk management applies within and across the 6 perspectives, 22 marks. Understanding how people and culture influence effective risk management, 7 marks. And the biggest part of the exam, understanding how to apply the 8 processes of risk management to create and protect value, 25 marks. There you can see on the slide the MOR4 integrated framework. At the heart, creating and protecting value. Around that, the process cycle with the 8 MOR4 processes. Around that, people and culture. Around that, the 8 principles identical to what they were in MOR version 3. And around the outside, the 6 perspectives. And we're going to look at each of those briefly now, starting with the principles. So as I said, the 8 principles haven't changed from MOR version 3. We've got the 7 enabling principles, aligns with objectives, fits the context, engages stakeholders, provides clear guidance, informs decision making, facilitates continual improvement, and creates a supportive culture. And those 7 enabling principles enable the 8th principle, achieves measurable value. In terms of the principles, they haven't changed. The explanations of the principles in the guidance have changed slightly, but they're fundamentally, the principles are the principles, they haven't changed. We now have 6 perspectives. 4 carried forward from MOR version 3, strategic, program, project and operational, plus 2 new perspectives, or new to MOR at least, portfolio and product. The addition or the emphasis on people and culture and the importance of people and culture on risk management is probably the biggest change, the biggest addition to MOR4. And we'll be looking at those people and cultural considerations along with stakeholders and biases. I think that's a really interesting section. The influence of risk culture on risk management, the right risk culture or the vision of a right risk culture that we can aim towards, and some solutions to common problems that you may face. And finally, of course, the key part of MOR, the MOR process cycle and the 8 MOR processes. And although at first glance these might look significantly different from what we had at version 3, they're actually very similar. You can see them there on the slide. In version 3 we had identify context, we've now got define context and objectives. In version 3 we had identify risks, we've now got identify threats and opportunities. Of course, threats and opportunities are risks, they're just making that explicit, and I think they've probably done that just to remind everyone that opportunities are risks as well as threats. We then had in version 3 we had assess, estimate, where we estimated the probability and impact of individual risks. But the reason we were doing that was to prioritize them, and we now call it prioritize risks. We then had assess, evaluate, where we looked at the combined risk profile of all the risks to the activity, and we're now calling that assess combined risk profile. So it's just a more meaningful title really for what we're doing. The third step in MOR version 3 was of course plan, and that's really been split into 2. So we've got plan responses and agree contingency. Both of those would have been contained within the plan step. They've now split them into 2 processes. We now come on to the glaring omission. In MOR version 3, the 4th step after plan was implement. Implement your risk mitigation, your risk treatment, your risk controls. And of course you must do that. They've missed it out. What can I say? Glaring error. I feel like they've got to update it at some point in the near future. Maybe we'll have an MOR for version 1.1 or 4.1. Maybe they'll bring out an MOR version 5. I don't know. I think they've got to address this glaring error. It's just not in there. Read through the book, they don't talk about implementing controls. So they talk about planning them, they talk about agreeing contingency, but then they move on to monitor and report progress. So clearly, number 7 should be implement, and monitor and report should be 8, and review and adapt should be 9. What can I say? They've made an error. We'll just have to live with it. So clearly, once you've implemented your controls, you need to monitor and report progress. You need to monitor they are actually being effective and report progress. And in MOR version 3, we had communicate as a constant activity. It is there, obviously you need to be communicating all the way through, and there is reference to communicating all the way through in the guidance, but report progress is the explicit bit where it talks about communication really. And then in MOR version 3, a key part of the framework was embed and review. And that has been brought into the process cycle. So it was outside the process cycle, it's been brought into the process cycle as review and adapt. So you can see, although at first glance it looks very different, it's actually very similar. What you do get in MOR 4 and what you will get going through the course is more guidance on the particular tools and techniques that you can use at each of those steps, in each of those processes. Right, so I hope you've enjoyed this introduction. It is just an introduction to the course. Obviously, we'll be covering all the things we've talked about, the whole framework in much more detail as we go through the course. So I hope you'll join me in the first lesson where we will look at understanding the purpose of risk management. Until then, have a great day.